You're listening to Ricky and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
All right, welcome back. We are so excited that you're here with us. I'm joined, as always, by Ricky.
Hello, Jimmy. I'm excited about this one today. You know, I could talk for days on the anxious avoidance stuff. Let the audience know what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So even if you've heard us talk about this before, we love talking about this, and we always get emails and messages saying that when we talk about this kind of stuff, it really resonates with people and it really helps them. So we get excited talking about it. There's always something that we can learn. So no offense, but there's probably something that you can learn as well. We're going to talk about the anxious and avoidant dynamic because so easily, I know Ricky and I both have been into the negative cycle of that trap and found our way out of that. And it's extremely important that we are cognizant of how we get stuck in that cycle and how to get out, because that's where connection is actually found. So we're going to talk about all the ways that we get stuck. We're going to talk about all the ways that we get unstuck. And I promise that you will come away with a better understanding of this dynamic.
Oh, that's really well said. I want to let people know too, that in our own relationships, I think Jimmy and I are both more on the anxious side. I got that question the other day from someone, and our partners are more on the avoidant side, and we love them intensely, where we are in no way hoping to demonize them or either side for what happens with this dynamic, because truly both people contribute to it in their own way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's actually not to discredit anything that you just said, but if you're in a situation where you feel like you're being mistreated, that is not us saying you're contributing to being mistreated. That's not what we're saying. You'll understand what we're saying when we start to talk about the cycle and how we both get triggered in different ways and re-trigger each other. That's what we're talking about when we talk about that. Each one of us contributes in different ways. Yeah,
totally. I think, Jimmy, you and I are going for empowerment rather than like victim shaming too. Like what can we personally do to make things better? What can our partner personally do? Not as much finger pointing, more so like how can both sides kind of turn this around? I
love that. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that one person can change the dynamic in the relationship. Mm-hmm. Like if you're stuck in a negative cycle, especially when it comes to anxious and avoidant, like triggering each other, you can break that cycle just by yourself.
Totally.
That does not mean that it will result in connection. It does not mean it results in repair, but you can break out of that cycle and say, I'm no longer going to participate in this negative cycle. I'm available for a positive cycle, but that person might not choose that option. And that's where it comes back to you deciding and having the confidence to say, oh, well, if you're not interested in a positive cycle, then we're going to take this in a different trajectory, regardless.
Very well said. Very well said. Don't apologize for that. That was awesome. I want to say it's maybe our friend Julie Manano. I am going to butcher this quote as always, but I'll try to get the gist of it. That one person can't save a relationship, but one person can absolutely change the atmosphere. And an atmosphere, a relationship with a changed atmosphere has a chance. So that's what we're going for today.
Oh, yes. I love that quote. Yes.
Isn't that great? So I know she's the best.
So let me get into a quick overview, and Ricky, please correct me if I get anything wrong, but let me just go over a quick overview, because sometimes we just don't even really know what are they talking about when they're talking about like anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. So when someone develops an insecure anxious attachment, this is the type of people who usually growing up, they had parents, and side tangent, this is not about blaming parents. This is simply about understanding the dynamics of our past, because they impact our present. That's it. Mm-hmm. This isn't about blaming your parents. You might have had parents that were inconsistent with love. Now, another way that I would say this is sometimes it's not even our parents. Take me, for instance. So I grew up in I don't know what you would call it, split home. My mom and dad were never married, and my dad, I have half siblings over on the other side of my dad's family. So I would see him every other weekend, and he was very good about he wanted to spend time with me. Like sometimes I would see him every weekend. Other times, as I was growing up, it would just be every other weekend. So obviously, I lived with my mom primarily. I would see him and that other side of the family who I loved. I loved spending time with my half siblings and seeing my dad. Here's the problem. My dad never intentionally did anything to neglect me. My dad never, but I developed this as a child. I developed this fear that like my dad's already kind of at arm's length. If I don't earn love, if I don't keep it up, if I don't make him love me, then how easily would it be for him just to leave and not come pick me up? And so when I say that, when I look back at the way my dad handled it, there's certain things that I probably would have done differently. My wife and I are still married. We have 4 kids together, but if we got divorced, I would make sure that I was in those children's lives like very, very consistently. Like there wouldn't be multiple days going by where I didn't see them. So that's just personal, because I know I would never want them to feel like I was not going to see them for 12 days at a time. Regardless, you understand the gist of the story is my dad didn't do anything necessarily wrong, but just the environment that I grew up in, I created in myself this anxiety, this insecurity of if I don't perform, my dad's just going to leave. Like he's just never going to come get me again. There just wasn't the consistency that you usually find with safety. There just wasn't really that. So do you know what I'm saying?
I didn't know that about you, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I just want to say that's, it sounds like you've done a lot of work looking back into your past and seeing how you felt about all that and how that may have affected you in the future. That's amazing. Great work, right? I want to say that's hard stuff. Yeah, that's hard stuff for people to do. I know certainly not everyone has done that. And sometimes those echoes in our past are affecting our relationships in ways that we don't even realize. So good on you looking back at that tough stuff.
Yeah, well, it's so important because that because I developed an anxious attachment that I was unaware of. So all throughout my dating life, I was constantly trying to earn love. I'm a textbook people pleaser. I can pick up the slightest bit of disconnection in someone else. Like, are they upset with me? But that's the thing. I immediately start creating these stories. Like maybe they're upset with me. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I need to now do this to like make it right. So our anxious attachment shows up in a lot of different ways, but at the core of it, it's simply a fear of being abandoned in a sense. Help me out.
Hey,
help me out.
Hey, you'll like this too. Here's a little bit of reprieve for our parents also. There is some amount of biology involved in this too. Some folks are just more predisposed toward anxiety and hypervigilance, monitoring the closeness of relationships. And some individuals, just from a personality perspective, are a little bit more independent and closed off. So it's not all nurture, some of it's nature. So there's that too. So before you're pointing the finger at your parents too hard, right? Some of it's just our natural inclinations. So
yes. So yeah, the anxious, if you think about anxious attachment as if I had a subconscious fear that I was going to be abandoned, if I kind of found safety within connection with other people, then it makes sense if I asked you the next question of, okay, then what would that person do to prevent that disconnection that they're afraid of?
Yes.
Your answer would be anything. Well, because the end justifies the means. If I maintain this connection, then all will be well. I just put a reel out today, actually telling a story. I made it as funny as I could. But when I dated this girl who I didn't really even like. I knew this was not the relationship for me. And we've told certain stories. I
I
don't think
love
I
that
ever told you
episode.
about her though. Yeah, I love that
Oh,
episode.
okay.
I don't think I talked about her though. I did because it was a very short relationship. I dated this girl. I didn't even really like her. I knew this wasn't the relationship for me. We got into this fight, and I kind of just like was honest with her about like, I don't feel prioritized in this relationship. I don't think you, doesn't seem like you care about my needs or desires. She completely ghosted me. Like she completely, that was it.
Okay.
She was a
Yeah.
little bit more avoidant, leaning attached. And she was just like,
Sure.
I'm out of here. I don't need this
Bye.
garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So long story short, a couple of days go by of her just not talking to me. And, at first I'm like, you know what, Jimmy, this is what you wanted. You didn't want this relationship to work out anyways. And then the anxious attachment set in and the fear took over me. And I felt this panic in my chest, and so then I'm texting her, I'm calling her, she's not answering. And I'm just like panicking in my head because I'm going to lose this relationship that I didn't even really appreciate. So if you want to understand anxious attachment, that's the problem with anxious attachment. So long story short, she never got back to me. She completely she just dropped me. And I got so panicked, I ended up driving over to her apartment, leaving notes on her car, taping them to her front door because I was just like, I just wanted to see her. If I can see her, maybe I can fix this. I can apologize to her face and we can repair this. That's anxious attachment. I didn't even like this relationship and I was terrified of losing it. Why? Because that was a core wound that I had, what I was unaware of that was manifesting itself in that present moment. It had nothing to do with her. That had everything to do with just me being unhealed and bringing that stuff into my present.
What a perfect example of that, because lately I've been seeing a lot of chatter online about people who are upset. They're saying, like, it's not my fault that I'm anxious. They didn't call me back for 5 days in a row. And it's like, I kind of want to shake those people and be like, that's not anxious attachment. Like if somebody is acting in a way that would legitimately make anybody nervous or uncomfortable in a relationship, that's not where you should be pinning your anxious attachment badge onto your chest. What Jimmy just described, where you're doing things to reconnect, even though it doesn't even line up with your values, that's anxious attachment. This might be a good place to segue into the other side too, avoidance. So any of our insecure attachment, anxious or avoidant, is people doing whatever they can, even if it's kind of irrational and bad, to find safety. So our anxious folks, me, Jimmy, we are going to be doing things to find safety in other people. So when this girl left Jimmy and he just, drove over to her house and wrote notes, please reconnect with me, that's us doing irrational things to find our safe place, which is other people. On the avoidant side, their safe place is themselves. And those poor avoidant folks catch a lot of flack for that because that can look selfish, that can look narcissistic. But for them, other people are the scary thing. That's why closeness kind of freaks them out and they retreat into themselves. They get really busy. They make lots of excuses so that they don't have to connect. And those behaviors that they're doing might run in stark contrast to a connection and love that they really actually want. That's avoidant attachment. Folks will ask me, how do I know if they're avoidantly attached or they're just not interested? An avoidant attacher is going to say, I really care about you, but this closeness stuff freaks me out. Someone who's not interested would be more like, I'm independent and I have no interest in connecting with you in that way. I'd only like to hook up. I don't really want to create a life with you. That's disinterest. Avoidants are more likely to come on strong because they really do want to be with you and then panic and run or make themselves busy or dismiss you when things heat up. So I don't.
And honestly, at the end of the day, not to be rude to that person asking the question, but it doesn't matter. Like that's the problem with my anxious attachment. Just talking about myself, I was always so externally focused that if you talk to a lot of people pleasers, especially because not every people pleaser is anxiously attached, but there is a lot of overlap. So if you talk to people pleasers and you just ask them like, why don't you just tell me? Like, what do you want in a relationship? How do you feel loved and valued? Like talk about your needs, or tell me your needs. They sometimes don't even know because the idea feels selfish to them for them to think about their needs. And they're like, I'm not allowed to have needs. Like I find safety by prioritizing other people's. So
totally. And on the other side of the coin, sometimes when you ask an avoidant, why don't you just connect with me? Why don't you just make time for me? They also might not know. Their I don't know might be sincere because they haven't done that work to dig in.
You're 100% going to hear I don't know if you're struggling, if you're in a relationship with an avoidant attacher.
Right.
That's
and
one of your clues.
Yeah. I know, totally.
It does feel,
it feels dismissive. It's not any fun to receive and confusing. Does this person even care about me if they just don't know? But really, Jimmy, do you think if anybody could have asked you back when you were pinning notes on someone's door who didn't want to be with you, why are you doing these things? You didn't know either, you know?
No, I didn't know. Right. Yeah. But if I could tell him, Jimmy. Man, like there's so many things that I would want to tell him. But mostly I would just want him to be able to find safety. You know what I know now is that relationships cannot thrive if you don't have the ability, this goes for both partners, the ability, the desire, the safety to be honest in a respectfully vulnerable. I'm not talking about honest as in like blunt, arrogant, honest. Like I'm talking about honest as in like I understand myself and I'm going to show up to this relationship as my authentic self. There's things that I'm not proud of myself about, but there's also things that I am proud of myself about. And there's things that I know I need. If anybody's listened to our podcast, Ricky does such a good job at talking about some of the things that she understands that she needs in a relationship, that she got to the point where I'm just not willing to have a relationship unless my partner, the person I'm with, cares about these specific needs, because I know that isn't a relationship where I would feel good in. And there's no point in being in a relationship where I'm setting myself up to not feel good. And that unfortunately takes a lot of trial and error. It took us a long time before we finally realized, there's certain things that I know I need, and that doesn't make me too needy. Like Ricky talks about them all the time. Like her need for somebody to check in when they're just going to like be gone for a long time. Like that's not something that we need to feel. Our earlier insecure self would have been like, maybe I'm being too needy. Our secure self says, I'm okay with the fact that this is what I need to feel good in a relationship. And I'm going to communicate that to my partner, and they get to choose whether or not they want to respect that from me. But if they want connection with me, then this is the bridge. It's both people just telling you what the bridge consists of and then walking over it together. But if you can't do any of that because you're too anxiously attached, you don't want to be seen as needy, you don't understand yourself, then you won't have connection. You'll constantly feel disconnected.
I'd love to add something to what you just said too.
Yeah.
The only way that any kind of relationship can thrive is if you're open and honest about what you need, no matter what the cost. That's the line that I want to add into it. Because for me, in the beginning, I felt like I am being honest. I'm telling him all the things that I need, and he's not responding well. But I missed that little part, no matter what the cost, right? Because I would squash that honesty if the cost was losing that person. And there can't be any if at the end of it. There can't be any, there can't be any qualifier. We have to be honest about what we need and willing to stand up for that no matter what the cost. Maybe the cost is they seem annoyed, or maybe the cost is they're upset when they hear that, or maybe the cost is that they literally, like the girl that you just talked about, they literally hang up, they dump you, they never talk to you again. Maybe that's the cost, but really, we have to stick by those things, even if we end up on our own. And I'm sure new Jimmy would tell old Jimmy, hey bro, that's a good thing. That wasn't the person for us. And there's better people for us in our future who won't think that these are too much to ask for.
Which is so hard to imagine. I mean, like as an anxious attacher or as a people pleaser, oh my gosh, that you just don't know. But like you're absolutely right. I would have told him, it's actually good that you found out that this is not the relationship for you. You don't have to mold it into that's the problem with the anxious attacher and the people pleaser. We try to mold it into, how can we make this work? Maybe it shouldn't work.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not talking about, I mean, if you're married with kids, I'm not telling you to go get divorced, but I'm saying like, if you're dating somebody and you're not married to them and you don't have kids with them, and you're like describing to me your relationship and there's no accountability and all you guys do is fight and nobody really you can't have honest, vulnerable conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that relationship's not going to work. I'm like,
Yeah.
quit trying to make something work that's just not set up to work. And if you're willing to put in the work, but they're not, see ya. Like,
Oh, hey, Jimmy, let me
yeah,
borrow one of your lines that I love too. If you're married and your person is not responding to these needs and requests in a healthy way, that relationship won't work for you in the state that it's in. Right.
correct.
I love that you said that. You need to find a new relationship with that person. Counseling can help with that, couples counseling. But also maybe
gosh,
just
yeah.
a sit down. What do they call those? The come to Jesus moments
Yeah.
where you sit down with each other. Yeah. And you
Dude,
say, hey,
this is a tangent. I know I've talked too much already, but you know I'm
oh
fired
no,
up
that's
about this.
okay. I
My
know we
wife and I
both
had
are.
my wife and I had such a dysfunctional relationship. Here's a depressing quote. I think this is from the Gottmans. I'm not sure, but the average divorce is like 7 or 8 years, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like on average.
Mm-hmm.
And couples don't seek help. Those couples that divorced, like they didn't seek help until like year 6. Now
Yeah.
you're telling me the first 5 years were good? Highly doubtful. I bet they were highly toxic. Now, even if you don't want to use the word toxic, they had an unhealthy dynamic. They had a negative cycle that they were
Right
stuck in
there.
for years.
Yeah.
And that's my wife and I. We were stuck in that
Yeah.
cycle for 5 years. We didn't get help until probably our 6th year, and we almost got divorced at year 7. We were almost the statistic.
Right. Hey,
My
and I
point,
was,
yeah,
for
go
anyone
ahead.
listening, right? My marriage, which I thought was fine until it wasn't. Oh goodness. Sorry, Jimmy. For the folks who are just listening, yeah, apparently I just did a gesture that made balloons rise everywhere when I made air quotes. I will not do that again. Please leave that in there, Jimmy. That was amazing. So I thought my relationship was quote unquote fine until it wasn't. And we didn't seek help until we had become so embroiled in our resentment and felt beyond hope that poor counselor couldn't have even done anything for us because it was that we dug the hole too deep, you know?
Yeah. And I don't blame in this story, I was kind of blaming myself because of that resentment that you talked about, because anxious attachers and people pleasers, we will continue pouring from an empty cup and we will continue feeling disconnected. And yes, there will be times where we will fight and like be vulnerable and you'll have these, but you won't actually like put your foot in the ground. Like you said, like the come to Jesus moment, you won't sit down and be like, the way this is going now, is unsustainable for me. That's so hard to say as an anxious attacher and a people pleaser, but because I didn't have the skill of actually self-reflection and like self-awareness and like understanding all that stuff. And as emotionally intelligent as I thought I was, because I was the emotional one, I can talk about my feelings, or I want connection in this relationship. So I think I'm so aware. The truth is I was actually just as emotionally immature because of the way that I would bring things up. And so we're going to get into all that. But the point I want to make is that so often anxious attachers are just as emotionally immature as avoidant attachers. They just don't realize it.
Yeah, they don't know it. Isn't that a crime? That's another thing I wish I could tell my younger self. Like, hey, you're doing a lot of things that you don't realize are contributing to the problems here.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great spot for me to go into my first weird way that we can kind of get ourselves out of that push pull, trying to get closer, pulling away dance that these couples tend to do. And these aren't going to be popular, fun things to hear, but they are things that actually worked for me and my partner when we were deeply in. This is not my partner that I just referenced to that I got divorced from. This is my current husband, Chris, who started out insanely avoidantly attached. And I was incredibly anxiously attached at the beginning of our relationship, but no more. So one big scary tip to get yourselves out of the dance is to put your foot down about anxious and avoidant behaviors in the relationship. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. But what I mean by that is when I notice my husband, Chris, doing something that comes from his avoidant attachment, this would be not calling me back at a respectful amount of time, or overscheduling himself and not prioritizing any we time together. When he notices is me trying to have a 3-hour conversation about something wrong in our relationship, right? Or trying to set some sort of limit, trying to impose some sort of behavior on him, like you need to text me at noon because I need to hear from you then. We call each other out on it. And that is one of the ways that we as a team got out of that dynamic together, because there's safety in having a partner that's not going to stand for that. And there's security in it too. A secure attacher is not going to let you call them 15 times in a row. They're going to say, hey, I care about you, and this excessive calling thing is kind of stressing our relationship out. The security in me saying, hey, babe, when you are gone for a day and a half and you're out on a fishing trip, I worry because, that's a situation where things could legitimately get dangerous. So if you could shoot me a text, that would be really respectful and it would mean a lot to me. Standing up for ourselves when those anxious and avoidant behaviors hurt us, and calling our partners out in a gentle, loving way is one of the best ways, I think, to help get each other out of that dance. What do you think about all that, Jimmy?
No, I love that. If we didn't do a good job at explaining kind of what this dance is, the dance in a nutshell is, as we've kind of already described, you have this picture of this anxious attacher, like they feel safe with their connection, like they want, but it's also kind of it's from an insecure place. So like the reason I needed excessive reassurance was because I needed to soothe my own anxiety. It didn't really matter
with
how
other
much,
people, right? By using other people to do that. Okay.
Right, using other people. Yeah.
Got
so it. I wanted excessive reassurance, but even if they gave it to me, which they rarely did, but even if they would have given it to me, it wouldn't have mattered, because right. I don't know who said this. I certainly won't take credit for it, and I'll probably butcher it. But like, as an anxious attacher, you can only feel as safe as your last interaction. You know the quote.
Oh, I actually don't know that one. That hits home though.
Yeah, like I can only feel safe as my last interaction with this person. So even if we've had the best day together, okay, imagine we just had the best day together. It was perfect. Like, it was everything that I could have imagined. I felt so connected. But when they're going to bed, they don't say I love you, and they don't say goodnight. They just literally, they're looking at their phone. They turn their phone off and they just shut their light off. And you're like, do you even love me? Like,
totally.
do you? And then it's like, so I can't even, now I need reassurance. Like, well, hold on, I need reassurance. But a secure person in this relationship would just be like, they're just tired. Like, we had the best day together. We had the most amazing day. Like, why would I assume that they don't love me, or why would I create these stories? Like, I'm not saying that you're wrong if you like think like that, but I still think like that. My wife does that all the time. She forgets to say goodnight to me all the time. And I'm like, do you even care about me? She's like, what did I do? Like, I don't understand. So, we have to remember that, now I'm obviously better. She can do whatever she wants. Like, I know I have security in the relationship.
Because you have security.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I took too long. Let me wrap this up.
No, that's okay.
The dance is, if somebody's feeling they want connection externally, they're looking for this other person for connection, especially if they're doing it with somebody who is avoidantly attached, who they don't really want. Too much connection in the relationship means that the expectations are going to be up, and I'm going to let you down. And I find my safety in my independence, and I can feel very smothered very quickly. So any hint of excessive reassurance, or any hint of like, hey, I need you for this. And it's kind of like getting their claws in. Anybody that's watching like on YouTube, like, I'm trying to put my claws in you, and the avoidance, like, what? Like, no. Do not need me for things. Do not, I feel smothered already. So the dance is somebody like a people pleaser or an avoidant attacher, something goes wrong and there's like a conflict, there's an internal conflict. And instead of doing the self-work and the soothing our own nervous system and making sure that we're not creating stories about this, like figuring it out ourselves, whatever the case may be, instead we build up some resentment or passive aggressiveness, or we come at them critical, like Ricky just said about this person that's going to be leaving and they don't communicate. We could say, oh, you think it's cool to just never text me while you're gone? You think that's, oh, that's so loving that you do that. And then what does that do? What is the dance? The dance is, how would the avoidant person react when the anxious person said that to them?
They pull away. They'd lean away.
Why wouldn't
lean
they?
out. Why wouldn't they? Anybody would. Right? Maybe not even an avoidant partner. A secure partner
absolutely
would also lean away if they're being
Yes.
attacked and accused. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say now somebody's criticism right now is, yeah, but even if I said it the right way, they would still pull away. Maybe. Like we don't have control over that. The only thing that we have control over is, are you actually communicating what you need? Because you needed something in that complaint. You needed them, just like Ricky said, hey, when you're gone, I worry, and it would really feel respectful to me if you would do X, Y, and Z. That's the respectful way to say that. But instead you chose, oh, you think you can just never text me? Like you must not even care about me. You're both saying the same thing. One is an extremely immature way of saying it, which is going to push your partner away for sure. And the other is vulnerable.
Yeah. Let's distill the dance into a few sentences. I think I can do that. I should be able to by this point. The anxious partner feels that they need more closeness, so they lean in too far or in a way that's actually kind of destructive. And the avoidant partner sees that leaning in and they lean out, and they lean way out. But then after leaning out for too long, they realize that they're lonely or unfulfilled, or they need to reconnect because it's a human need that we all have. And they lean back in, and then everything's fine again until the cycle repeats. That's the dance. And we want to get out of that. We want two people kind of standing more level and connecting and communicating without too much over leaning that throws things off.
Yes. And without overcomplicating it. In my mind, the dance is something happens. The anxious person comes at someone with criticism and passive aggressiveness. The avoidant partner gets defensive because why wouldn't they? You just attacked their character. You just made accusations. You just made assumptions. You didn't talk about your feelings or what you need. You didn't use I statements. You said you did this because you don't care. Of course they got defensive. So they get defensive. The anxious person escalates the conflict to now some sort of contemptuous, they bring up the past. No, you always do this because 3 weeks ago you did yada, yada, yada. The avoidant person now escalates to their next level, which is either complete shutdown because, well, I can see now that this conversation is all about me being a piece of garbage. And why would I stay in this conversation? So I'm either going to shut down from a place of complete emotional dysregulation, or just logic and rationale. I don't need to talk to someone who just thinks I'm a piece of garbage. That's a dumb conversation. So I'm not going to engage in that. So they shut down, which only ignites the anxious person's fear of abandonment. I'm losing them. They either attack more, or they now, after things calm down, they now apologize, and they don't. Regardless, nothing ever gets resolved. There's no vulnerability ever happening. It's just it's a dance. It's a negative cycle of just it goes round and round.
But Jimmy, I want to throw out also that that the dance can happen, can be initiated by really loving, wonderful things too. That's the hard part of this insecure attachment. Maybe the avoidant realizes that they've been really distant, and they plan a super romantic, wonderful date with a lot of closeness and maybe even sexy time at the end of it. And if everything's so wonderful and close, and for the avoidant attacher who doesn't find safety in connection with other people, that's terrifying. So even if they initiated some sort of closeness, that can make them pull away too. This insecure attachment stuff is, it's a real relationship saboteur, and we got to realize that that fear dynamic underneath is what's tearing the couple apart, and not the couple, I don't know, being inherently bad at this or being inherently bad in the first place. We got to get rid of that fear. We got to make more connection. You prepared some ways that a couple can get out of that dance too for today's episode, right?
No, but I can.
Oh, no.
I can talk about it.
Okay, it's all on me. That's okay. That's okay. So I just talked about. I mean, you did? Okay.
I mean,
that was terrifying. Don't do that to me.
Yeah, no, I love talking about how to get out. I thought you had more. I can
I
jump
do
in at
have
any
more.
moment.
Yeah, I do have more. I
Tell
was
me.
just kind of like
I'll
volleying
piggyback
it
on
over to
yours.
you. Okay, great.
No, I've talked enough. I want to piggyback on
Oh,
yours.
okay, great. So another tip, I guess, that I have is my partner and I don't ask each other this explicitly out loud, but we're constantly asking each other with our behavior, can I trust you to stand your ground on what you need? So individually being able to stand our ground on our needs is really important. For some people, that's gonna start with getting to know what we need. And I think earlier in the episode, Jimmy, you said that I've in earlier recordings talked about ways that I got to know the things that I needed. Journaling's my favorite. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. A counselor can also help you realize what you might actually need out of a relationship. It's good to imagine the things that you might need if you were single. That helps me think about who I really am and what I want without having to consider other people. What does Ricky want if other people didn't exist and I just think about my own stuff? I also love to look at my relationship role models. These are usually older folks whose relationships I see that I really admire, that seem very respectful and close and affectionate. I like to look at what they have and go, ooh, is that something that I might want to incorporate as something that I need?
I love that. Yeah, I love
Thanks.
that. I mean, it really goes back to, especially when it comes to both people need to do their inner work, but just speaking from my own, like the anxious standpoint, we have to find safety in ourselves. Like we have to, it's kind of like Ricky said, I don't know if you said it just now. I thought you did, but where it's like, even if this doesn't work out, like I'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know,
We've
like
said that before for sure.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot that goes into like trying to heal that abandonment wound in you. Like, of course there's understanding. Of course there's like trying to figure out where am I, falling back into that pattern. Like what's my go-to? Because like that abandonment wound can just take on to so many different forms. Like, like people pleasing, for instance, so it's like, you need to know when you're kind of operating from that place of, it's just a wounded place, and then start to learn to say no more and start to learn how to like set healthy boundaries. And yeah, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. It's going to feel like
Really
I'm
uncomfortable.
doing something wrong, but you're not. It's just so unfamiliar because you've been stuck in survival mode for so long. And that's both of you. The avoidant person is stuck in survival mode too. The question is, how do we get out of survival mode? And
Yeah.
that
This is one of those ways.
yeah,
What I
yeah,
just said, the standing your ground looks like me telling my partner definitively, I will not tolerate being ghosted. And that's a hard sentence to get out. But in the beginning of our relationship, I had to say, if you would like a romantic relationship with me, you can't go 2 or 3 days without communicating with me because that doesn't
yeah.
work for me. That's me standing my ground. And there's safety. One of my avoidant leaning friends and I were talking about attachment theory, and she's the avoidant leaner, and she told me, Ricky, I just need somebody to hold me accountable for my BS. And that really hit me hard as someone who has an avoidant partner. I didn't realize that Chris wanted me to hold him accountable for his BS, which his like not calling the person that you say that you love and are in a relationship with for 2 or 3 days. That's BS, right? And for me to be able to say, hey, babe, that behavior doesn't work for me. I can't tolerate it. We got to figure something else out. He actually felt a lot of safety in that discussion that we had,
Well, it's also really, I mean, excuse the term, but it's really sexy.
Oh, yes. You don't have to excuse that term. It is. It is. And
Like,
yes. And Chris told me that too. Like, wow, like this is really attractive. Like, who is
yeah,
this girl who's suddenly like
yeah.
standing up for herself? And it was very appealing.
Confidence and assertiveness, not from an arrogant standpoint, but from just an authentic standpoint, is extremely attractive.
It
And I mean,
is.
and that's something that the anxious attacher or the people pleaser struggles with massively. But
But
that's
the
the work that
avoidant does
you have to
too.
do.
Not
Oh,
to totally
obviously.
interrupt you, but so I had some sentences here, some anxious sentences. I will not tolerate being ghosted. I will not tolerate a lack of what are we conversation. Like right? That's something that won't fly for me. On the avoidant side, Chris has said, hey, I can't tolerate a 2-hour relationship problem discussion. He said, that's too much for me. It's too heavy.
For sure. My
and
wife literally falls asleep
right,
if I
exactly.
talk for too long. I mean, I'm not kidding you.
But Jimmy, imagine the safety if she had said, Jimmy, this is too heavy for me. We've been having this discussion for 45 minutes. And for me personally, I need a breather. I'll be back, but I can't let you draw this conversation out continuously. Another thing.
Because I'll say the same things over and over.
Right. I will too. And I will too. And they don't go anywhere. And I have to say, as the anxious partner, I actually love it when he stops me from my roundabout conversation. Like it's actually comforting to have somebody say, hey, it's been an hour and we're not getting anywhere with this. Let's take a breather, maybe write down some thoughts, maybe some new thoughts that we haven't talked about yet and come back. That's really comforting. That's one of the things that helps get you out of that push-pull.
Can I add to that though, real quick?
Please do. Please do.
As validating an anxious attacher, sometimes when you're arguing or sometimes when you're in a conflict with an avoidant leaning person, they're not great at conflict either. Like you're not, the anxious person isn't great at conflict because they don't actually really know how to be vulnerable. So they're kind of coming in a little bit too hot because they haven't really done the work. They haven't regulated. They haven't journaled. They know what they're upset about, but they can't really put words to it. The avoidant person doesn't know how to do conflict because they don't want to. They're very sensitive to being seen as bad. They're very sensitive as you're not good enough. And so they're terrified, but they don't do anything about it, hence the avoidance. So if you're Frank is our resident avoidant. If you're Frank and you're hearing this for the first time, you're like, why are you calling me Frank? Here's what really helps me. Here's what really helps me as an anxious attacher. If I'm coming to you and I'm doing my best to all I want is for you to be present. And what I mean by that is when I am upset about something, I need you to not necessarily make it all about you. I don't need you to you're immediately going in and you're in shame responding. I need you to block that. And I need you to just be present. And the best way to be present with somebody I'm not saying you should ever tolerate being yelled at, called names, belittled. I'm not saying the anxious attacher has the floor in the sense of they can just say whatever they want. But if they're coming to you and like, hey, I'm upset by something that happened. Our immediate response as an avoidant attacher is, well, you don't know my intentions. Let me tell you my intentions. And then that will negate this whole thing because I'm not comfortable with feelings. I'm not comfortable with my own. I've suppressed my own feelings for so long. That's why it's so easy to invalidate and suppress yours because you're like, feelings are stupid. Don't you realize? Like, let me just teach you. Let me just tell you what is actually happening here. And then you won't feel that, which means that you won't be mad at me, which means that I'm not a bad partner. The problem is that only pushes away the connection that we want. And I know I'm going on a long rant, so I'll be quick. But what I want from you is simply for you to learn how to listen. And some of the best phrases, first it comes with just our presence. Are you actually looking at me? But don't just stare at me. I don't need you to just stare at me silently because that makes me feel like I'm an idiot. Like what I'm saying is completely stupid. And that's why you're not nodding. That's why you're not saying like, okay, I see what you mean. You're just looking at me. And nobody wants to just be stared at during a conflict. So don't just stare at me like I'm a moron who's running my mouth. Just say things like, oh, that makes sense. Or have some sort of curiosity or desire to understand my perspective. And what that sounds like is just like, oh, okay, so when this happened, that's kind of what led you to feel that way. And oh, yeah, that makes total sense. And then you felt completely neglected in that environment. Like, yeah, I can totally understand that. I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to feel neglected. Don't talk over them, but also don't say nothing. Like just that's being present and being curious and trying to understand that. We just want to be understood. The reason we talk for 2 hours is because you're just sitting there staring at us and we're thinking, do you not understand? Do you want me to say it again? Like maybe if I said it a different way, you would give me something. If you just said, oh my gosh, I care. So like, talk to me. Like I'm right here. I I hope that that would not cause them to just repeat themselves over and over if you actually were trying to listen to understand them.
Yeah. What a good example of how the avoidant partner is contributing to the dynamic there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, the anxious partner does have a tendency to be overly wordy and draw things out and not feel reassured, but in many or most cases, the avoidant partner is just sitting there staring. Maybe they're feeling shut down, maybe they're feeling
Mm-hmm.
feelings of shame, but their silence is contributing to the anxious partner in that cycle, repeating
Yeah.
themselves over
Yeah.
and over. So it's tough. It's really tough to see how we ourselves contribute to these things,
Oh,
but
yeah.
we do. I mean, relationships are dynamics. This is also one of my favorite reasons why it doesn't work to just say, forget this person, I'll just go find a secure partner, because our anxious behavior will make a secure person act avoidantly. And our
For
avoidant
sure.
behavior will make a secure person act anxiously. It's because
For
these
sure.
relationships are created between two people. So really the healing and the fixing has to start within ourselves. We have to look closely and say, what am I doing that maybe makes this person react this way? How am I? And that we can find a lot of empowerment in there. Then we're not so much a victim of everybody being jerks to us or needing too much or not needing enough. We're saying, okay, I've probably got some role in this. How can I show up the best, healthiest way that I can so that how can I change the atmosphere, right? So that this
Mm-hmm.
relationship has a chance.
I love that. The way I have showed up differently is I notice what's going on for me personally. Like if something happens and I felt a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
then when I talk to Emily about it, which is one first step, which is actually really hard because in the past I would just bury those feelings and needs
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't feel safe to bring them up,
Right.
and I didn't want to be seen as too needy. And especially when you're part of the avoidant dynamic, is they will unintentionally probably make you feel too needy because they'll just be like,
Mm,
again, you're going to bring this up, but that has nothing to
yeah.
do with you. That has everything to do with them. That's their
Right.
shame response. And that's their, so, my point is that when I bring something up, which is hard to do, I make sure that I do everything I can not to trigger her. Now, it is not my job she's an adult. It's her
Mm-hmm.
job to not get triggered or to deal with her triggers. But as someone who loves her, I do not want to
Right.
do anything unnecessarily that will trigger her. So criticism triggers her. Attacking her character, making assumptions triggers her.
Mm-hmm.
Making accusations triggers her. I don't need to being passive aggressive. I don't need to communicate with those. There's other ways. So
Yeah.
when I communicate with her, I say, one, it's not my intent that you feel like I'm calling you the bad partner here. And then I say things like, when this happened, this is how I'm feeling about it. The story I'm telling myself is
That's a
this.
great one.
That helps them to see that you're taking accountability for the narrative that you have spun, because we all have our own narratives. We all have our
Mm-hmm.
own, we remember things a little different, or regardless. I'm not jumping to any conclusions here. I'm saying one of the most loving things that you can say to your partner, I don't care what their attachment style is, it's just, this is how I'm feeling. Can you help me? Can we understand this together? Because
That's
somebody
a
that
good one.
loves you, they want to understand it. I care about Ricky as a friend, and if she had a conflict with me, if I did something unintentionally that hurt her, I would want her to say, hey Jimmy, there's something that we have to talk about. And I would say, please tell me, like, let's do that, because so your friendship matters more than my ego, and that's to be the same
Yeah.
in a relationship. Our connection matters more than my ego. So like, of course, let's understand this together, and there's a
Yeah.
healthy way to do that.
Yeah. I love how you said that. On my own side, I've been having a rough few months, and this may be something that might help the avoidant partner a little bit more. But instead of hiding that, because I probably showed up to this podcast today a little bit low energy, and instead of hiding the problems that I've been having and letting Jimmy worry that maybe I'm upset with him or not interested in filming with him, I let him know right from the get go, hey, I've been having a rough couple of months. It's not you, right? It's something I'm going through. And that way, because I care about Jimmy and I don't want him to worry, I am kind of preemptive about that. I'm like, okay, this might make him worry. I'm going to take responsibility for my mood and I'm going to let him know ahead of time. I'm kind of going through some stuff. It's not you. It's here's what's happening with me.
Yeah.
That can
So
help
true.
get partners out of the dance as well by being,
Oh, yeah.
try to be aware of how you may be affecting them and kind of be preemptive about that.
Yeah. I think what helps us get out of the dance and this, I'm not pinning this on one partner. I do not want one partner feeling like they have to carry the emotional weight of the entire relationship. That's super annoying. Don't mishear me. I think what helps so much is us remembering that we're on a team.
Yeah,
like Ricky and I are friends. And so I just said, like, if we had a conflict, we haven't had that many conflicts, but I'm sure, but the more time we spend together, we've known each other for a couple of years now, the more eventually we're going to have a conflict. Like there's going to be something that happens and we're just like, hey, can we talk about this? But I trust that we would know that we're on a team. Like, we've been doing this podcast for 2 years. I mean, it's not that it's like wildly successful or anything, but it doesn't matter. We built something together that we're proud of. Like we're proud of the videos that we've created and hopefully they're helping people and we get to learn a lot and we get to talk about the stuff that we're passionate about. We've built something together. We're a team. And so that's what we forget in this dynamic. That's part of when we're stuck in survival mode. That's part of when we're in this fear of abandonment or fear of rejection. We forget so quickly that we're supposed to be a team. And then one of the best things you can do is just, even during a conflict or during just daily life, like, this is my teammate. This is my teammate. Yeah. How can I help my teammate feel appreciated, valued? Like, these are questions that we should be asking every day. What's one small thing I can do today to help my partner feel valued and appreciated? Both partners can ask that. There's no, so.
Yeah. I think back to younger Ricky, and if I could have asked her in my marriage, for example, at my old marriage, is this other person's needs and desires as important to you as your own? I don't think I could have said yes to that. I really don't. I think I was much more focused on my own pain and what I wasn't getting and how things weren't working. In my new marriage, for sure, I try to keep in mind that Chris's needs are just as important as my own. And that's that team thinking that Jimmy's talking about. Of course, I care about my own needs and interests and desires, as anybody with good, healthy self-esteem should. But in a partnership, I also care really deeply about what Chris needs. Sometimes what Chris needs is time away from me. Sometimes what Chris needs is to be able to go to sleep without having a big, deep emotional talk because he's exhausted. And that's something that he legitimately needs. And nowadays, I care about that as much as mine. It's, Stan Tatkin talks about the couple bubble, and I'm inside it now. That doesn't mean I don't also have a little piece of myself outside of it. Chris has a little piece of his self outside of it, but we've also got a bubble that we are inside where we care about each other's needs that sometimes directly conflict with our own. And that's okay. We're on a team doing everything we can for the greatest good of everyone who's inside that bubble.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that especially if you're an avoidant leaning partner and you have a partner like Ricky, who's like, I want you to have your independence. Like, your independence is important to you. Like, you recharge your batteries, by that's okay. If you're that partner, like, I would just encourage you even more that when you do come back, like, it's so important. Not that Ricky needs it. Like, it's not like she's anxiously attached where she needs like that. But it means so much when you do give somebody their independence and they come back with a recharged battery for like the relational sense. Like, I want to prioritize this connection with you. That gives everybody the consistency and safety. Like, for you to be like, I'm okay that he recharges his batteries with his independence, because when he comes back, I feel his presence. He's here. Yes. Like, I know he's here.
And Jimmy, on the other side of that too, if the avoidant partner is giving you a little bit extra affection and closeness,
So true.
Don't let the green-eyed monster take over and try to get even more. Recognize what they're giving you as a wonderful gift that might go directly against all their alarm systems inside, and go, hey, that date afternoon was spectacular. Thank you so much for that. Like if you'd like to go play cards with the boys
Appreciation.
tonight, right? Like I go do that. Go do that. My love tank is full, man. That was great. Head off and do your thing. Those are the kind of things, I don't know, the negative spiral where bad things are happening and everybody's circling down the drain. This is the upward spiral where you just keep giving to each other in the ways that each person uniquely needs, and things get easier and better. They're easier to give.
Yeah.
And they're better overall. Mm-hmm.
The Gottmans say that the number one predictor of whether or not you can repair conflict is whether or not you have full love tanks. Like,
I love
like
that.
You can't,
yeah, that's fun.
Like there won't be a repair, because, there just won't be a repair if you don't feel like this person values me consistently. That's the biggest thing. And don't get me wrong, we still get emotionally dysregulated. We still need to do our own work of like recognizing where our go-to is and being like, hold on, I'm getting stuck in a loop here where I'm defending myself. And I think that we're arguing about, we're not talking about actually what the issue is.
Right.
But yeah, the number one thing is whether or not our love tanks are full.
Well, you know what, Jimmy, we fly by the seat of our pants in this podcast. And instead of whatever I was going to say, let's make that our last point for making the cycle
better. Well, now
better,
I want to know what you wanted to say.
It wasn't that good. This is better. So let's use that. A full love tank, where we are actively looking for ways to delight and fulfill our partner, is another one of the best ways that we can get out of the cycle, because it's really hard to be critical for your partner about not calling enough or not picking up the laundry, or whatever it is that you're upset at them for. It's hard to be upset at them for that when they've been doing a lot of really wonderful things for you, or vice versa. It's hard for them to want to run away from you if you've just cooked them their favorite meal. Like, the more things that we can do for our partner that really touch their heart and the good stuff that they need, it's harder for the bad stuff to creep in, I think.
I love that. So if I could just go on my last rant, but
yes, please do.
My last rant would be, if you're getting stuck in these conflicts from both of your standpoints, one, it's okay if you're the person that brings up more conflicts and you're the person that brings up the more feelings or complaints. That's okay.
Somebody's going to be, right?
Somebody's going to be, as long as your ratio is fine. Like that's the love tank stuff. But just do me a favor, and optimally both of you would do this. Just do me a favor and figure out what you're actually fighting about. Because sometimes it's not just about the dishes. Like, it's about the fact that you don't feel valued. It's the fact that you feel ignored. It's about the fact that you feel whatever the case may be. Maybe they rest more. Maybe they're good at resting, and you're not, because you feel guilty if you're resting, or maybe there's so much to be done that you're starting to feel resentful because you see them resting, and you're like, don't you see all the things that need to get done? But I know you don't care about these things, but I care about these things, and I'm sad that you don't care about these things with me. Just figure out what you're actually fighting for, because when we resort to passive aggressiveness, when we resort to just being silent towards them, or whatever the case may be, the best thing to do is figure out, what are you actually needing right now? What are you actually feeling and needing? Because you're,
it's tough for people to do that too. Let's talk about a few of the places that they can go to help them figure that out. Right. Couples counseling can definitely help you find out what that persistent fight about the dishes is really about. My sister, I know you don't have access, you listeners don't have access to my sister, but you probably have someone in your life.
Go to your sister.
Go to my sister. Go to somebody in your life who you feel really comfortable talking about this stuff to, and say, hey, me and my partner keep fighting about the dishes over and over again. Can you help me figure out what that might really be underneath? Because I'm inside the jar and I can't see the label right now. And I need an outside perspective to help me figure out what's really going on with that. That can be a good place.
Yeah. And for the person that's not, for the person, if Emily brought up a conflict to me, and maybe she doesn't talk about her feelings, maybe she's not being very vulnerable. I find it gets me out of the dance if I do focus on what are the hidden feelings here. What's the intent? Why did she bring
Yeah.
this up? Oh, she wants me to do more dishes? Maybe, but maybe there's something else here. Like, what is she actually feeling and needing from me consistently?
Right. And before you go, well, I'm just going to ask my partner directly what the actual problem is. I want to caution you guys that doesn't always work, because it wasn't that long ago that Chris brought something up and I asked him, what is this fight really about? And he was so upset and annoyed because he didn't know, he didn't know what was underneath that. He just knew that he had an issue with the dishes or whatever it was. And he thought I wasn't listening to his issue. I was trying to dig deep and ignore the thing that was actually happening, which is not it, but that's a pretty normal fight around here. That's a really
important point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that could happen. That can happen. Yeah. Especially if you're asking the avoidant person.
I did.
Like, I don't
what's
know
underneath
what you're
this
talking
fight?
about.
And he was like, I'm not in the mood for it today, Ricky. Which is totally understandable.
They don't want to overanalyze the conflict. My wife used to get so mad at me because we would start fighting about the fight. That's what she always said. But in my mind, I was like, well, we're just fighting about what? I was like trying to dissect everything. But in her mind, conflict is still scary. That's why I avoid it. And she's like, I don't want to be in this any longer than I have to. She's like, I don't want to fight about the fight.
You were in fight inception. You were like, the movie.
I was like, but isn't this how we get out? Isn't this how we get out of it? And she was like, I don't know, nor do I care. She's like, it's.
Which, by the way, perfectly normal fight. We don't have gaslighting partners. You know what I mean? These are like normal fights and arguments that couples have. Sometimes we don't know why we're fighting about this.
So true. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, my family will be home in 2 minutes. So it's like,
Yeah. I think we've hit the end of our time today, but I hope this was helpful. It felt a little scattered, but I think we're both pretty passionate about this one.
Yeah, I think it was still
our
helpful.
longtime listeners are here for the scattered interrupting. I think so thank you guys again. I know we thank you a lot, but if you're somebody who's listened to every episode, you're why we're here. Really,
you are why we're here for sure.
You are the reason. So thank you for being here. I would love it if people would send in some questions. That'd be super cool. I actually recently just send them to me. You can let me see. If you're listening on YouTube, you could leave your question in the comments below. That would be awesome. I know people love to email. This may be weird, but I'll throw my actual email out here in this episode. It's Rikki, RIKKI19 @gmail. And if you spam me or try to steal my identity, shame on you. I want actual questions about your relationship.
If you're going to spam me, at least ask a question.
Right. That I'll allow that. Yeah. And maybe leave a review. That's supposed to be helpful for podcasts. Yeah.
If you want.
Leave a review if you want. If not, we're still going to be here chatting about this stuff.
We sure are.
Because we love it. Thanks, everybody. And I guess we'll see you next time.
See you next time.